It has cost the American taxpayer more than $7 million. It has produced more than 100,000 documents. And it has dragged the deaths of 4 Americans and their families into everything from high-end movie making to deleterious muckraking. But it would appear, at least we would hope, the Benghazi investigation has finally reached its end. The committee investigating what happened that September day 4 years ago has hopefully left no stone unturned and given the American people something from which they can learn and make a judgment. But to the political dismay of some, it did not laser focus on one person and her involvement in the bloody nightmare. What it did reveal is what we have known for so long. No matter who's at the head of the government, no matter who's in charge, we're often woefully ill-prepared for the dangers we face around the world, and someone is always looking to cover their derriere in the process. From Benghazi to Brexit, from the candidate who still can't get a policy stance straight, to the polling that always perplexes. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. In a moment, we'll get to what is being called a final report on Benghazi, not before noting a bloody reminder that the terrorist attack on civilization is nowhere close to its final stage. Authorities in Turkey are, as we speak, deep into their investigation and cleaning up the crime scene at the Istanbul airport, where earlier today a trio of homicide bombers claimed 28 lives and injured at least 60. Neither of the suicide killers gained actual access to the interior of the airport, which likely saved countless numbers of lives. According to the Turkish Justice Ministry, one of the killers opened fire with an automatic rifle and then detonated himself at the security gate near the entrance to the airport. A second bomber was located just outside the terminal on the pavement. And at present, there is no word on the disposition of the third bomber. No bombs exploded within the airport building itself. While no group has thus far claimed responsibility, Turkey has been dealing with a string of terror attacks over the past year carried out by both ISIS and Kurdish militants. The explosions occurred at the airport's international terminal, and there is no official word yet on the identity of the victims. We'll have further updates on this event throughout the evening, right here on Newsmax. Now, let's begin the Hardline.
I understand that after more than 2 years and $7 million spent by the Benghazi committee out of taxpayer funds, it had to today report it had found nothing to contradict the conclusions of the Independent Accountability Board. I think it's pretty clear it's time to move on.
This was the day, circled on more calendars inside the D.C. Beltway and across America than birthdays, holidays, bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras, or the day you decided to let your wife make the decision about what kind of barbecue grill to buy because you realized she'd make a better call than you could any day. This was the day Democrats were convinced their candidate for president would be completely exonerated with what they believed was fabricated evidence in a partisan hack job against Hillary Clinton. This was the day Republicans were convinced they would finally, once and for all, bury the Democratic choice and finally be shown to the American people and the world as the liar and fraud they knew her to be. It would be the day the American public would finally understand why 4 Americans died in Benghazi, how such a tragic failure of communication and coordination could possibly happen, and why this needed to be so scrutinized and explained. In the end, this is the day where not everyone got what they wanted. And it will still remain for the American people to digest 800-plus pages of facts, discard books written with an agenda, understand that a movie is just that and comes complete with Hollywood-style touches, and decide for themselves what really happened. Your phone calls, as always, part of the conversation on this topic that has the entire nation talking and will resonate well past the November elections. Get in line right now. Be ready with your take. Be brief and to the point, and do it all at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Welcome back. The veteran Republican policy analyst and former advisor to the Donald Trump campaign, Sam Nunberg. Also joined by the strategy and big data consultant who proudly calls himself the conservative Muslim pundit, Oz Sultan. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us. Sam, let's get right to work. The report is out. No new evidence of wrongdoing by Hillary Clinton. When you hear what the committee found today, Sam, do you believe that this is the final word and this is the definitive word on what happened in Benghazi?
Well, is it the definitive word of what happened in Benghazi? The definitive word is that we had 4 Americans that were left killed. And then the next day, as you well know, and as we all recall, the president and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton went into the Rose Garden and blamed it on a videotape, which, as we well know, that this was a coordinated attack by an Al-Qaeda affiliate. And they were doing this because it was 53 days out from the election. And frankly, they lied to the American people. And now, is this a closed deal to Democrats? I mean, this has been a closed deal since it happened, right? To Republicans, this shows that she does not have the judgment to be president of the United States. The issue, obviously, for us and for your audience is going to be independent voters. And how does this come down to when we get to that threshold question of whether we want Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton to be the next commander-in-chief?
All right, now Trey Gowdy led the press conference today on the findings, said Washington, D.C., and he made this point, was uninformed of the actual events happening in Libya. Let's hear what he's got to say. Oz, I'm coming to you next. Here we go.
No U.S. military asset was ever deployed to Benghazi despite the order of the Secretary of Defense at 7 o'clock that night. So Washington had access to real-time information, but yet somehow they thought the fighting had subsided. Washington had access to real-time information, but somehow they thought these fighters were going to evacuate, even without the remains of the ambassador.
Oz, we heard Trey Gowdy in there mention the Secretary of Defense. At the press conference today, they were all very specific to point out that this was not about one person. This was about more than one person. This was about, in many ways, a systemic failure up and down the line. So while some will continue to point to Hillary Clinton as the person in charge, if we are going to be fair and down the line, do we not need to say that this is also a fault of people above her, people alongside her, people underneath her, but a failure of the American government to care for their people overseas, not just one person?
Well, I think the challenge that you have is the American people want someone to hold accountable. On one side, we've got the problem of Obama doctrine and the simple fact that there's a wait-and-see attitude taken to far too many foreign policy issues that should be decided now. The challenge that we have coming forward from this is not just necessarily what do we do about Benghazi, but what do we do to prevent these types of failures from happening again? How can we actually put controls or maybe protocol or maybe even review the process between the State Department and the military to ensure that we have lasting support for our Americans abroad?
So let me get to this then, Sam. In your opinion, your personal opinion, does this mean that Hillary Clinton has completely shown, and according to the Benghazi investigation here, has been completely shown to be someone that we cannot trust with the presidency, that we cannot trust with looking after our interests overseas, despite the fact that even the commission itself said it was a systemic problem and not just one individual?
Well, is it a systemic problem? I think that 100% we can all agree on that. What I would say is Benghazi the ultimate reason why Hillary Clinton can't be the president? No, but it's one of the main reasons. Look, she is untrustworthy. And you don't have to believe us, believe the general American people. They still feel that. And as we all recall, she was one of the leading proponents of taking down an American ally at that point in Omar Gaddafi. She said that there were, that we were defending these rebels, that we were defending these freedom fighters, and it came out that these were essentially ISIS or Al-Qaeda fighters. And if you recall as well, I mean, there are other facts we can go into with this, but I don't think that she's admonished by this by any chance either. And the real issue to me is not this report. It's once again remembering that she said to the mother of a dead SEAL, we're going to arrest or we're going to get the gentleman that made that videotape. That's a fact. I didn't make it up. You can listen to the mother say that when the casket of her son was coming back from Benghazi. And it's inexcusable. They were lying. They were lying for political gain because they wanted to win re-election for Obama.
Oz, is that what we have to take away from this, that regardless of whether you're pro, con, the report, whatever, we need to look at the lies that were told? Somebody above this chain, somebody in this chain decided to lie somewhere. Somebody passed those lies on, and it continued to be passed to the American people and the families of those involved.
Well, I agree with Sam. I think two things you have to look at is one, that there is fraud inside of the process, and that needs to be just shaken out. But the other thing is look at the Gucci Fire report that just recently came out that has a ton of national security documents and a bunch of Hillary's emails. I mean, Trump pushed that out today. The question is really the ability to lead. And the question of Hillary is if she hasn't performed at the JV role, why are we giving her the varsity role?
All right, let's go to the phone calls. 1-877-Newsmax. 1-877-Newsmax. Let's hear your opinion again. Please be brief and please be to the point. Beth joins us from Atlanta or Texas. I'm not sure which one, actually. But Beth, you believe the Benghazi Select Committee does not have credibility. Why is that?
Absolutely no credibility. Why are they not worried and spend that kind of money, the $7 million for the 800-page report that came out?
Well, they spent more money than that, actually. They spent a lot more than that.
No, I'm talking about all the limbless people. You know, now I remember Vietnam. I'm that old. We said we were never going to treat our vets that way. There's millions of our vets that are being treated worse now than they even were during the Vietnam. And so to spend that kind of money and that amount of time on 4 people to prove a political point.
Okay, now that's a good point. Sam, let me come to you on this very briefly here, because there are a lot of people, and it was more than 7 million. We're talking double digits, right. $10, $11 million, and maybe more by the time the final bill actually comes in, that has gone to taxpayers. You, me, and everybody else listening right now paid that bill. Sam, was it worth it when that money could have been spent better, or is it necessary to push us forward to protect ourselves in a changing world?
Well, first of all, I do agree with your caller. I would certainly rather that money be spent on our veterans, and their veterans, as you well know from our the VA scandal with the Obama administration, they're being treated terribly, and they're literally treated. They're put on the back of the line. They can't get proper access to care, which they do deserve, and of course, we need to help get them jobs when they return. Now, should that money have been spent? The unfortunate truth is the Obama administration was not being transparent with this issue. So it had to be. And if that's what we have with accountability, and thank God we have a Republican Congress to try to hold the Obama administration accountable for this. Now, did the report at the end of the day give us a smoking gun? As I said to you, no. But the fact of the matter is as we can all recall from that fateful day, which was 53 days outside of the election, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama went into the Rose Garden and they blamed this attack on a videotape. So it's almost like the lie, you're going to be able to keep your doctor, don't worry, from Obamacare.
So Oz, let me get to this. Hang on one second. Hold on, Sam, because
Yes,
I'm running out of time. 20 seconds to you then, Sam. Is the biggest word in here that we need to focus on Oz, that we need to look at transparency on this is the biggest issue. Tell the truth from the first second out.
Well, I think we need to look at transparency, but at the same point that, you've got a broken process, and that process needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed by the next president, who hopefully isn't Hillary Clinton.
All right. Gentlemen, please hang on. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, turn to some other political pickings of the day, because we have the polls, new numbers that are out. And remember that these polls, and one specifically, was taken before this report came out, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days. Why a certain candidate has decided to play the data game, and why Brexit, according to some, was more about xenophobia than money. That's coming up next in your calls right here on the Hardline.
Now it's time for the American people to take back their future. We're going to take it back. That's the choice we face. We can either give in to Hillary Clinton's campaign of fear, or we can choose to believe again in America.
Once upon a time, Americans wanted their politicians to be specific about what they were going to do, how they're going to do it, and what the cost of such ideas would be in dollars and dedication. Of course, no longer the case. We now reside in a nation where the shiny thing at the end of a soundbite gets more attention. One candidate setting a new standard in how to play the game, but it works. Plenty to talk about, including holdovers from the last segment. You need to be on the line right now. Wait your turn. Take part. 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629. Welcome back. The conservative Muslim pundit, Oz Sultan, and the former communications advisor for the Donald Trump campaign, Sam Nunberg. Gentlemen, let's get to work. Let's talk numbers here, if you will. Oz, I'm going to begin with you. The new NBC News Survey Monkey weekly poll. I just love the fact that a poll calls itself the Survey Monkey. I think that's just brilliant. Hillary Clinton now leading Donald Trump by 8 points, her highest advantage since the general election matchup question was first asked back on May the 2nd. Your take on an 8-point lead and how you think Donald Trump will be able to bite into that lead, knowing full well that the Benghazi report still holds Hillary Clinton responsible for what happened.
I think it's going to come actually back to policy. I saw Trump speak last Tuesday in New York, and one of the things that he spoke to, actually a couple things he spoke to, was one, developing inner cities, two, a jobs program, and he specifically said defending Muslims to have their families in safety from ISIS. Okay, this is a big thing. This is a big change in rhetoric. And I think this has to do with the change in campaign management, but I think it also has to do with the fact that he was running a primary race before, and now he's running it for the general. So this is the big time. And I also think that the stepping down in rhetoric is more in line with the way that we are as America. We're a tapestry, we're a fabric. We need someone who's actually going to be leading us forward and focusing on the big problems, not partisanship.
Let me ask you this, Oz, and Sam, hang on, because I'm going to come to you with this, but Oz, seeing as you brought this up, we need to talk about this. Donald Trump has changed his stance on Muslims in America once, twice, thrice, several times. As somebody who sits out there and as a conservative, are you insulted by the fact that he cannot come up with one single line of thought, one single line of policy and stick with it?
The challenge I think we have is right now in Congress, they're debating the term radical Islam. Okay, the problem we have is we just don't have terms. I've done a bunch of counterterrorism data consulting, and I use the term fuzzlies, separatists, because that's what a lot of these folks are. The challenge that we have is that the information potentially coming to these candidates may be coming from the wrong types of sources. But look at it this way, okay? Hillary Clinton has killed more civilian Muslims in foreign countries that could potentially create blowback through her drone program over the course of the past 8 years than's ever been done before. At the same point in time, Obama's been responsible for more deportations than Trump has ever talked about. So on one side, we've got someone who's talking negative. On the other side, we have someone who's kind of sticking a candy cane out there and then basically beating you up on the opposite side. So it's half, it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. I'm not exactly sure where America should be casting their vote. I just know we should be paying a lot more attention to what's actually going on.
Sam, picking up from what Oz said here, in the battleground states, Donald Trump has taken a slight lead in North Carolina. He previously trailed Hillary Clinton by 3, but it's those battleground states that are going to be huge come November. When we talk about issues such as Donald Trump's changing states on Muslims, immigration and such, and some of the things that Oz brought up, isn't it fair to say that he needs to hit hard at these? He needs to have a very specific go-to, square between the eyes message, because that's what the American people want, and that will be good for his candidacy and his chances, yes?
Yes. Well, first of all, I wanted to congratulate my former colleagues at the Trump campaign. The fact that they were able to get him to read off a teleprompter
Twice.
times in a week,
Twice
in 2 weeks is a miracle in itself. I mean, look, here's the reality is this: the number's 40. Donald is at 40. He's at 40 nationally, and he's at 40 in these battleground states right now. Is he going to be able to pull out this election? If it was today, it would not go well. But he does have time, if he wants to do the work, and he has time to perform in these debates. Now, on the Muslim ban, I had discussed that Muslim ban. Look, I was fired from that campaign last August. I worked for him for 4.5 years. We discussed this Muslim ban in the beginning of his campaign, and the issue was you didn't have to be, you didn't have to be a psychic to realize that ISIS was going to attack that year. And when they did, it was supposed to be something more nuanced and something more specific. But people like Roger Stone and I weren't there, and they did this overly broad ban. When he gets down to it, and you get into the nuts and bolts, and you say, look, I don't care if you have a European passport. I don't care where you're from. If you can show that you've been traveling into Syria, you've been traveling into Libya, you've been traveling even into Turkey, we're not going to let you into our country.
Okay, stop there for 1 sec. Hang on 1 sec, because you're onto something here right now.
That's not a Muslim ban. That's a universal ban.
That's correct, and that's what it should have been. Now, it's not a universal ban because you and I both know that these aren't Christians that are coming to training with ISIS.
Okay, let's talk about this here, because I want to inject
exactly
this here.
True.
I have a soundbite here from Donald Trump, and this talks about, and we specifically hear how he changes his stance on banning Muslims from the United States. Listen up, here it is.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown
of Muslims entering the United States.
I don't know if it hurts me or not. I really don't know if it hurts me. I don't care if it hurts me. I'm doing the right thing when I do this. And whether it's Muslim or whether it's something else, I mean, I have to do the right thing.
You said countries linked to Islamic terrorism will be blocked in terms of immigration.
Great terrorism.
So would a Muslim coming from Scotland or Great Britain, have you tweaked your policy on that?
Wouldn't bother me.
All right. Now, very, very briefly, Sam, because I got a couple of other things in here, but he said a total and complete shutdown of Muslims is what his challengers are going to be playing back. You were there.
Right.
What's your suggestion then right now to Donald Trump?
Well, he has to have a more nuance, which I think that he's doing. He has to turn it into the fact that what we want to make sure is that we can't allow our law. Look, the overall issue is.
But does he need to be more on point, Sam?
Yes,
let's get away from nuance.
Certainly so.
Okay.
Certainly so. He's not going to be able to win the presidency by a blanket Muslim ban. Absolutely not. He will not be able to win it. What it has to be is a ban on, if we have these parameters of people, how they've been traveling and trying to catch people, not to allow our laws to be used against us in order for the terrorist attacks to occur.
Okay, Oz, let me ask you, I know you got something to say on this, but again, be brief. No matter what he says at this point, do you believe him?
Listen, I've attended the Joint Terrorism Task Force briefings, okay? One of the things that we should be looking at is, well, first of all, if the ban that he's proposing is the way that he's structuring it right now, it's problematic, but I think people can live with it. I think the challenge that we have is that there's so much misinformation that's out there inside of our government that's being fed as data that we've got to get that process cleaned up, because you've got law-abiding American Muslims who are the backbone of this country, 10% of your doctors, okay? And these people shouldn't be forced to face the same challenges that we're looking at putting in terms of restrictions and folks who could be associated with ISIS.
Okay, let me go ahead and leave it there real quick because I want to get a couple of phone calls in here. Faye from North Carolina. Faye, I'm going to ask you a very pointed question, give you 20 seconds. Does it make a difference to you that Donald Trump changes his stance?
It does make a difference, but Donald Trump is off the cuff. He is not a career politician. He says things, and it's misconstrued. And people do it on a regular basis. I don't understand sometimes. I don't like a lot of things that he says, but he's for our country. Hillary Clinton is not.
Okay, we got to go ahead
not.
and leave it there. I appreciate it, but I got somebody else I need to get in here. Bill is in Bradenton, Florida. Bill, the same question to you. Are you a Trump supporter, first of all, and does it make a difference to you that he changes his mind?
Yes, I am a Trump supporter, and I think he's in a little bit over his head. When he got into a realm that's totally strange to him. Before, he had all those politicians working for him, whichever side of the aisle. He had to pay them off to get done what he wanted to get done. And he even admitted as such. Which I liked about him. At least
as a Trump supporter, then, Bill. As a Trump supporter, then, Bill, because I got to move on. Will you still vote for him, even though he doesn't seem to have a specific policy that he changes his mind? You still going to vote for him?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What do I want? Another communist in office?
That's all that counts, whether it's communist or not. I get that. Gentlemen, Sam and Oz, let me just get a very brief, and I got 10 seconds from you very quickly here.
I just want to make one quick point. Look,
okay, you're going to take up your 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, after Orlando, Donald challenged Hillary to use the two words radical Islam. She did. And therefore, on this issue, you know where the polling is, and you know that he can win on it, but he has to be more nuanced and put more meat on the bone.
Okay, we're almost out of time. 15 seconds to you then, Oz. Can Donald Trump still win, even though this hangs over his head? A lot of people out there say absolutely.
I think we need a solid policy against terrorism that doesn't throw Islam under the bus. But I do think he can win. And I do think that and I agree with your callers, we need someone in office who's going to basically support the Constitution. And that's my 2 cents on it.
Gentlemen, we ran off. We didn't get to half the things that we were going to talk about here, but who cares? We're going to bring you back again. We'll definitely do it because this is the spirited conversation, what people are talking about today, thanks to the Benghazi report. Sam Nunberg, Oz Sultan. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again. Now, just as much to blame for what happened in Benghazi is a group of people who should have known better and who for some reason always seem to be lagging in their preparedness and their vision. We're going to talk about that, plus more of your calls right here on The Hardline.